As far as I know, I have never intentionally in my whole life humiliated anybody for anything whatsoever. Never, as far as I know. I may have done it unintentionally. And I feel good to be able to say that. I feel good to have that attitude toward people. And you know, it comes back to me because the people have that attitude toward me too. They don't want to humiliate me. Why? Because you get back from people about what you send out. You're a human magnet, and you're attracting to you the sum and the substance of what goes on in your heart and soul. Then appropriateness of personal adornment. That's important to anybody in public life. Now, I have never been too fussy about that. I've never used formal clothes except on very few occasions. Formal clothes, there are times, however, when it's appropriate, perfectly appropriate, for you to adjust and to have. But ordinarily, if you use good taste, and ordinarily the best dressed person is the one that's dressed so that if you were told to describe how he or she was dressed later on, you couldn't do it. You'd say, all I know was he looked nice or she looked nice. Appropriateness of personal adornment, then good showmanship. You've got to be a showman if you're going to sell yourself in any walk of life. You've got to be a good showman. Know when to dramatize words, when to dramatize circumstances. You know, there are certain things, if you describe them in just ordinary language, you take the history of the most outstanding man in the world, and if you just gave the bare facts and didn't dramatize them as you went along, why, you'd fall down flat. You really would. You've got to dramatize these things that you're talking about and these people that you're doing business with. You've got to learn the art of showmanship as you go along. And it's something you can learn. And then I don't need to mention to you that you should have the habit of going the extra mile. We've spent a whole evening on that, and you've got a whole lesson on that. And certainly you can rate yourself on that. And then on temperance in eating, drinking, work and play, and in thinking. Temperance, that means not too much, not too little of anything. Do yourself just as much damage with eating as you can with drinking liquor. Just as much. The rule that I go by in all these things is that I don't allow anything to take charge of me. When I was smoking, when I got to the point where the cigars were smoking me, then I quit. I can take a cocktail, I can take two. I guess I could take three. I don't remember ever having taken more than that in a social evening, but I could if I wanted to. But if I ever found them taking me, or if I ever found my being able to resist them, I'd part company with them in a hurry. I would say I'd follow the same rule if I were smoking again now. And when I got to the point where the cigars were smoking me, I quit. Quit right off. I want to be in possession of Napoleon Hill all the time. Not too much, not too little. Temperance. Temperance, it's a marvelous thing. There's nothing so very bad in life, don't you know, if you don't overdo it. Then patience, under all circumstances. Patience. You have to have patience in this world we're living. It's a world of competition. You're constantly being called upon to use your patience. And by using patience, you learn to time these things so that you get action out of other people at the time when the time is more favorable. But if you don't have patience, you try to force the hand of other people, you'll get a no, or you get a turn down or a knockdown when you don't want it. Patience requires, you require patience in order that you may time your relationships with people. And you have to have a lot of patience. You have to be able to control yourself at all times. Most people don't have much patience, you know. You can you take the average person, take the majority of people, you can make them mad in 2 seconds. All you've got to do is say the wrong thing. Or do the wrong thing. Why, I don't need to get angry because somebody says or does the wrong thing. I could if I want to, but it's my choice. I can choose not to get mad. Number 23, gracefulness in posture and carriage of the body. Now, if I came in and go like this, of course I'd be very comfortable. That's much easier. But it's finer for me to stand up like this, look like I can stand straight without leaning on anything. Slump around and be careless in your posture. Mark you as one who is not very particular about his own personal appearance and so forth. It's a good idea to have gracefulness in posture and carriage of the body. And then 24, humility of the heart, based upon a keen sense of modesty. Humility of the heart. I don't know of anything as wonderful as to have true humility of the heart. Because, you know, when I think about criticizing anybody for anything now, and sometimes there are times when I do have to criticize people. Sometimes I have to criticize the people I'm working with. Some of them, not all of them. But always inside of me, maybe they don't hear it, but inside of me, when I find it necessary for me to express disapproval of anything anybody does, I always say inside of me, well, God pity us all. And but for the grace of God, I'd be the man that I'm over there criticizing. And maybe I've done things that 10 times as bad as the thing I'm criticizing him for. In other words, I try to maintain that sense of humility in my heart, regardless of what happens to me that's unpleasant, and regardless of the more successful I become, the more I observe this feeling of humility of the heart, recognizing that after all, whatever success I have is due entirely to the friendly, marvelous love and affection and cooperation of other people. Because without that, I could never have spread myself over the world the way I have. I could never have benefited the people that I have. I could never have grown the way I have grown had it not been for the love and the affection and the marvelous, friendly cooperation of other people. And I couldn't have gotten that cooperation if I hadn't adjusted myself to other people in a state of friendliness. Last but not least, personal magnetism. That has reference to the sex emotion, of course. An inborn trait, and the only one of the traits of personality which cannot be cultivated, but it can be controlled and directed to beneficial usages. As a matter of fact, the most outstanding leaders, salesmen, speakers, clergymen, lawyers, lecturers, teachers, most outstanding in every field of endeavor, as a matter of fact, are people who have learned to transmute sex emotion. That is to say, convert that great creative energy over into doing the thing that you want to do most at the time being. And that word transmute is something to conjure with, something to look up in the dictionary until you make sure you understand what it means. Now, you've got a lot of thinking to do about this, and you're going to make discoveries about yourself. You're going to find out that when you really come down to answering these questions and giving yourself a rating, that you have certain weaknesses that you didn't know you had, and that you have certain strengths and certain good qualities that you perhaps had undervalued. Let's find out about ourselves to see just where we stand, what it is that makes us tick, why people like us, why people dislike us. And I could take any one of you and sit down with you, and by asking you, I'll say not over 20 questions, I could lay my finger right on what's keeping you from being popular if you are not popular. And you can do the same thing. That's what I want you to do. I want you to learn to analyze people, starting with yourself, find out what it is that makes people popular, what it makes them tick. And when you do that, you have one of the greatest assets that you could possibly imagine. Thank you very much.